Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we are going to have an incredible special show. We're going to bring in one of my coaches, one of my mentors, someone that's truly helped me in my life. And I'm going to introduce him all to you. Most people don't know that I'm a medical professional. Most people don't know that I started my life in internal medicine and spent a lot of time there and really loved it. Most people also don't know that I was injured in an accident about 10 years ago, and I was unable to walk for about 6 or 7 years. And I got some very special physical therapy and some very special yoga therapy. And one of the people who was incredibly helpful for me being able to walk again is Todd Mclaughlin. And we're good friends. I know him now for 17 years. He's a mentor of mine, and I'm excited to bring you here. The things we're going to talk about tonight are as follows: yoga and meditation benefits, yoga and tech neck, the neck pain that people get that work in tech all the time. We'll talk about yoga for technology professionals, yoga for the reduction of stress and anxiety. And the more unstable the world is, the more we need to manage stress and anxiety. And if you're like me, a senior cloud architect or a distinguished architect or an enterprise architect like me, where you're traveling the world and you're in 3 countries a week, believe me, you need yoga for stress and anxiety. Now, to me, my world's all about emotional intelligence because it's the lubricant that gets things done in this world. It's the best predictor of your long-term career success. And when it comes to emotional intelligence, it's not just a matter of managing others. It's just not what they teach you in just emotional intelligence training. It's about managing your emotions and others' emotions. And yoga, along with cognitive behavior therapy and certain breathing and meditation techniques, can really help you control your emotions. And when you can do that, guess what? You can better control other people's emotions. We'll talk about meditation at the workplace, yoga and mental health benefits tonight, how to stay healthy in tech, so with yoga for engineers, because we all need it, and of course, cloud architect meditation. So what's going to happen is,
Elonzo, do you have your timer?
Yeah, I do. I think you have your buzzer.
Yeah.
Let's reel it in. Let's have a hashtag save your voice, Mike. Again, he's being a bad boy today. So
Yeah.
Again,
those of you that were in class with us this morning know that Mike started off with a limit of 30 minutes of talking today. And before the end of class this morning, he was below 15 minutes left. So, Mike.
Okay, so let's be fair. I have some overused voice laryngitis. I'm going to talk to them a little bit, but the team is going to answer some really good questions for you. So, Chris, why don't you tell everybody about the exciting thing going on, and then I want to introduce Todd when the time is ready.
All right. I got my script. Let's see. All right. So let me tell you about a couple of things that we want to make sure that you're aware of. So we want to make sure that if you are interested in a cloud architect career or how to get a cloud job without any experience, we want to make sure that you know about our free webinar. And the free webinar, the link to the free webinar should be in the description. And I think a member of our team, I believe Tyrone, is in charge today. We'll be sharing the link to watch our free on-demand webinar. You can watch that. And then, of course, you can sign up for a Q&A session with us. You'll be prompted for that during the while you're watching the on-demand webinar. So make sure you do that. Don't do it right now. Save that link and do it after class or after the show. But we want to make sure you're aware of that. The next thing we want to do, we want to make sure that you know about our updated AWS exam guide. So a lot of work went into this. We released it earlier this month. About 100 people put work into this. I'd say actually probably at this point, probably a total of 200 people have put in work towards the entire product.
Think about the man hours too.
Yeah. This is the third version. I think the third version of this book. Literally hundreds of years of experience have gone into this book, and it's free. So make sure you follow the registration link that's in the description and the chat box to get this free AWS Certified Solutions Architect exam guide for both the associate and the professional exam. It's free. Free. And so make sure you get that. And then so we've got a lot of exciting things that we're doing. Even though Mike might not be able to speak, we've got a lot of exciting things. We're taking advantage of him not speaking and making him do other work. So we've got a lot of exciting things coming and a lot of exciting things that we're working on. So we want to make sure that you're following Mike and Go Cloud Careers on LinkedIn. And while you're following us on LinkedIn, also make sure you hit the subscribe and the notification bells here on YouTube, because if we do anything, you'll find out about it on YouTube and LinkedIn. So make sure you're doing all of those things. So that's all I've got. Elonzo, start your timer back up, and we'll let Mike get back to work.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Todd. Now, I met Todd 17 years ago. Here's what happened. I had a martial arts instructor that sentenced me to yoga. I mean, literally, she says 3 times a week for yoga if you want to get that next belt. So I walked into a yoga studio that she had recommended, and there was a woman named Tamara teaching this class. I brought my wife. She said, please bring your hands to heart center and say Om. I looked over at my wife and said to her in Greek, we can do anything for an hour. We can survive anything for an hour, because I was expecting it to be a little scary. 15 minutes into this yoga class, I never felt so good, so centered, so happy, and so relaxed in my entire life that I literally became addicted to yoga. In those days, I was traveling 200,000 to 300,000 miles a year as an architect. I went into every yoga studio you could find. And you know what? I never, ever, ever in my entire life found a yoga studio as good as Native Yoga. It's my yoga home. Hold on. I took a 500-hour yoga instructor program under Todd to learn from Todd, and I loved it. And I'm going to bring you Todd Mclaughlin, who's not only an incredible massage therapist, he's also one of the best yoga instructors I've ever met. And he's got some really good YouTube videos, and he's got a great video setup. You know how I know? I helped set him up. I was there with him building computer systems, making sure that he had the best equipment in the world. So let's bring in Todd, my good friend, one of the best yoga instructors you could possibly ever meet in your entire life. And he's
right. Here we go. There we go.
So this is Todd Mclaughlin. Todd, I don't know if you could hear the intro in the background. I don't know what you were backstage.
Yes, I was listening. Thank you.
This is Todd. I saw him last Sunday for a Thai massage. Let's get Todd's YouTube channel in there so people can learn from Todd. He's got a lot of free yoga stuff that's going on YouTube. He's making it by the day. I've been looking at the content, watching it, and I've learned so much from Todd. So from that first yoga class where I went, uh-oh, to every day now, yoga is a part of my day. I literally called Todd, hey, Todd, I tried this thing. Is it a good idea? I'd recommend Todd for physical therapy, along with collaboration with medical professionals like me. I recommend Todd for learning the best yoga. I recommend his studio and bring people all over. So I know I'm going to try and minimize what I talk. At some point, I'll be doing some more talking tonight. But Todd, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you, Mike and Chris and Alonzo. I really appreciate you bringing me onto your show tonight. I feel honored. My name is Todd Mclaughlin. I live in Juno Beach, Florida, and I'm really honored, Mike, for all those really kind words that you shared. Both my wife, Tamara, and I have been teaching yoga together for the past 22 years now, and we feel so honored to have the opportunity to work in our local community and also via the online platform. And, you know, I cracked up, Mike, when you were telling me that when both you and your wife came in for the first time and, you know, having that, you know, idea of like, all right, we can get through anything for an hour. And that's common when people start yoga. We find that's really common. You know, there's sometimes apprehension and maybe nervousness about, you know, will I be good enough? Am I flexible enough? And so the fact that in 1 hour, there's that transformation process for you to come out saying, oh my gosh, I love this. I want to do it again. That's what makes us super excited and keeps us showing up every single day, you know, just hearing the feedback from students and that rapport is just incredible. So I feel honored and thank you for all your kind words. I really do appreciate it.
And I'm going to say this, you know, if I didn't do some of the yoga that Todd taught me, I wouldn't be able to walk up and down the stairs each day in my house. It's truly changed my life. And that's why I'm here bringing the best people I know to you.
Well, thank you, Mike. You know, what's amazing is I follow you and I follow what your team is doing. I mean, Alonzo and Chris, what you guys do is amazing. I see your emails and I watch your YouTube lives, and I'm a yoga, you know, I'm a yoga teacher and a massage therapist, not a tech person. And I'm slowly learning to become a tech person, which, you know, I feel like I learned so much from watching what you guys do. And I'm just, you know, kind of chasing along, and I'm constantly inspired by you guys, is, you know, so much. So I really do appreciate everything that you guys do. It's amazing.
And Todd knows me for almost 2 decades now. He does my Thai massages every Sunday. He's doing a Thai massage and he's hearing about all the students that I got hired. I know he's hearing about it.
You know what was really incredible, Chris, what you did with the and Alonzo with the birthday celebration for Mike this year. When I tuned in, I mean, that was so emotional and powerful. I mean, I saw you tearing up, Mike, you know, the whole time, and I couldn't, you know, to see all of you show your appreciation for being coached in a way that you feel confident that you can get a job and be hired is really amazing. That was an incredible moment. And you know, because Mike, when you started talking about what you do, you were telling me how it was starting to really take off and people are really loving it. And you know, sometimes I was thinking, I just didn't really catch me how serious what you're doing is. So that was a big turning point moment for me. That was incredible.
You know, it's
Well,
really.
I want to take a moment here, Mike, if you don't, Mike and Todd, if you don't mind. I would point out that you know, Todd talks about how he's watched it basically from the genesis of what we've been doing. You know, he's helped us with content in our program, in our training programs. And I know I'm very grateful for that, and I know a lot of our students are very grateful for that as well. So I wanted to make sure that everybody realized that yes, Todd might be watching from the sidelines most of the time, but he's also taken part in our community and in our programs as well. So,
That's the thing, because managing your emotions is so critical. And people know me. I take some cognitive behavior therapy. I take some martial arts. I take some yoga. I take some pranayama. I take from this psychology discipline a little NLP. And, you know, Todd did us a favor. I just basically said, look, I want to help people build better lives. And he said, Mike, sure, let me record this for you. So we're grateful for that as well. And
of course.
But I mean, it's just, you know, it's pretty interesting. I've known Todd. I've watched his family grow up. You should see his kids. They're unbelievable people. I'm getting a new studio decorated. So, of course, I asked Todd, and of course, his sister knows how to decorate. So she's coming here and helping me. It's just kind of funny how things go through the years.
I agree.
But
also, just to remind everybody, you know, Todd's actually been on our channel before. So I want to make sure everybody gets a link to that, because you don't have the benefit tonight to be able to experience what we experienced last time. We had Todd had the opportunity to do some live demonstrations with us last time he was on. So I'm going to put the link to that in our chat box as well for everybody. I've also put a link in there to your 2-week sessions as well, Todd.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What that is if anybody's interested, you can try practicing with us via our live stream for 2 weeks, free, unlimited. So thank you, Chris, for putting that in there. I do appreciate it.
In fact, there's a 24-year-old that I recently sent to you, Todd. And we helped him get a cloud security architect job. And he reached out to me today and said, Mike, oh my God, my basketball's better. He said, my knees don't hurt. Yeah. I feel so much better. He's like, this stuff is magic. I should have been doing it forever.
That was a really great call. I don't know if it's okay to use his name or not. Can I say his
you can. Yeah, that's fine.
So Delroy called me up and he's like, I took one gentle yoga class, and normally when I go play basketball, my knees hurt, my back hurts, I feel so sore and stiff. And after one practice session, I feel amazing. And I love hearing that. That's like music to our ears. I'm sure you guys have a similar situation. If someone's like, you guys helped me out getting a job, it's one of the most incredible feelings to know that, the services we offer actually do work. and help people out.
And I mean, there's a lot of things that I respect about Todd. For one is when I took his yoga instructor programs, both of them, he enabled me to ask the million questions that I would, because that's just who I am. And we got into some physician level anatomy discussions, and Todd could keep up with me in every way. And let me tell you, when you're dealing with a guy like me that's got a ton of orthopedics experience, for a yoga instructor to keep that up puts him in the top 1% right there. But it's not just that. You walk in some yoga studios, you have no idea what you're going to get. I've taken classes as I've traveled, and somebody says, yes, we're going to talk about the Yoga Sutras of the Patanjali. It's all about free love. And I'm like, no, not when I read that book. We're going to talk about this. Yoga means this. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. So Todd's about as authentic as you can get. He's trained in Thailand. He's trained under the Joyce family, who basically came up with Ashtanga yoga. He's trained with Bikram. But he knows how to cater it for someone like me with 5 herniated discs, 2 torn rotator cuffs, labral tears in both shoulders and both hips, and a badly damaged foot, and still keep it traditional when he needs to. So, Todd, what is yoga?
What is yoga? Whoa, going for the big question right off the bat. Good question.
I love it.
Well,
Let's start off
Yeah.
right at the top. There we go.
Well, yoga, the word, literal translation is the root of the word is yug, and that means to yoke. And so there's this idea of if we have, say, a horse or an oxen, and it has power, and we want to harness that power, that a yoke would give us a chance to utilize or harness. The other use of this word is union. That's one of the most famous terminology. So a balance of opposing forces. That's well, I could talk for a long time on this. So if I get going too far here, please don't hesitate to stop me, you guys.
I got my buzzer. Don't worry.
All right. Yeah. I heard the buzzer already. I was like, if I get the buzzer, I know I'm cut off. So, yoga is a tradition that stems originally from India, and it has historical roots that goes back at least 5,000 years. The modern yoga that a lot of us are familiar with in relation to hatha yoga, which is the posture practice and breathing practice primarily, is the scholars nowadays attribute that to around about 1,000 years ago is when hatha yoga started to become popular. And interestingly enough, in that realm, there was only about 6 to 12 poses that were listed and that are written down in text. And now we can go to books that demonstrate 1,000 different positions. So yoga is the way that we come across, usually get introduced to it here in the West, is primarily through the exercise realm in terms of like, I'm going to go take a yoga class. And usually in our imaginations, that means doing different body postures. And that's absolutely correct. And then yoga is a huge topic that incorporates a whole mental, there is a spiritual element for those that are interested in that. There's a health component. There's a mental health component. There's the breathing. Their diet does come into it. There's a lot of, in terms of study and philosophy. So depending upon who you ask, that answer will be unique to that individual. Yoga is such a broad topic, and what's amazing is that if you gravitate towards, say, the physical aspect, and or if you're more philosophical in nature, yoga is just one of the most incredible, deep, rich cultures and source of information out there. So did that answer your question, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's pretty terrific. I just wanted, the definition people could actually understand, because there's a lot of stuff that's a little in the interesting realm when it comes to yoga. And you have a means to take all of it, boil it down to something that's simple and straightforward for us all to understand.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that sometimes the big question that we get all the time is, I'm inflexible. Can I practice yoga? And right? I know, totally. And, that is the answer to that is if you are feeling inflexible, then yoga is the perfect solution to that problem. And I think one of the challenges that we face as a yoga professional or as a yoga instructor, teacher, is that too much emphasis is placed on these really radical exotic looking flexible positions and not enough emphasis is placed on just getting present in the moment, feeling what's happening in the body, and then coming up with a good solution that's appropriate for our ability level. So the answer to that is that yes, everybody can do it because yoga is very inclusive of all personality types and whatever our interest is. So if I'm really on the physical side and I'm just interested in loosening my body up, yoga can solve that problem. If I'm a little more interested in the peace, love, and connection element, there's that part too. So, but if you are inclined toward one direction or the other, that doesn't mean that you have to take on the other parts that maybe you're a little shy about. So it can be made completely appropriate to each person's level of interest and where they're at in the moment. And that's what I think having a few years now of experience and practice teaching, yeah, every day I feel more connected with students when we just get down to the basics of what's going on in the present moment and looking for solutions. That really is what what I find fascinating about yoga is just searching solutions to the challenges that we face in the moment.
Todd, you actually hit upon something that's so critical for life. I've got students saying, I'd like to do this, but I don't have a background. And I say, so that's what education's for. Doctors aren't born doctors. Nurse practitioners like me aren't born nurse practitioners. Airplane pilots aren't born airplane pilots. They train. And, there's one pose called Baddha Konasana, bound angle. It's like the butterfly pose we're all taught in gym. It took me 17 years to get my chest to the ground. So what? So what? It's a process. The whole goal in life is to get better every day.
Yes.
And I remember, Todd, it was about 15 years ago, right before I hurt my foot, when I was walking around 240 pounds and full of muscle. I walked into another yoga studio. You were closed at the time because it was a full moon. But I still wanted to practice yoga, and Ashtanga yoga practitioners don't practice on the full moon or the new moon. So I walked into this ridiculous studio. The woman takes one look at me and she says, "You're too muscle bound for yoga." And I looked at her and said, "I'm still going to take the class, and I have a feeling I'm a little more mobile than you think I am." Put my arms behind my back, put them together for a Parsvottanasana pose, bend forward, had my chest, my head all the way to my knee. And she looked at me and she's like, "But you're muscular." And I was like, "Yeah, but I practice yoga every day, just not here." I said, "I
Yes.
wanted to try the studio. I'm sad that you actually made a judgment about me before you even met me."
Well, that's a really good point, Mike. I don't see how we could get anywhere in life if we judge people based on what they look like and our first impression. So, and from a learning and teaching perspective, I get more excitement out of having the student that feels like they can't do it or they are quote limited because that's what's the most exciting to work with versus when someone comes in, it's like, I'm a real pro and I already know everything. Um, you know, it's just so I really appreciate when people come that feel like they can't do it. That's to me really exciting. So the fact that you walked in somewhere and someone judged you based on how bulked up you were and said, how could you be a yogi if you have muscle? I just can't even believe that. I can't, that just doesn't compute for me at all, why someone would even say that, but, you know.
Well, clearly I never went back to that studio again.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, if it's a full moon or a new moon, well, maybe I'll just take off that day or else I'll do my own yoga.
On a funny note, Mike, that you say that, well, now with the new and the full moon, the first time Tamara and I, we went to India, and we arrived in a town called Mysore in southern India, and we were signing up to practice with a teacher in there named Patabi Joyce. And when we arrived there, we were looking for an apartment to rent so we could settle in and be there for a bit. And I met this really nice gentleman, and I asked him, "Could you help us find a place tomorrow to rent?" And he said, no, because it's a full moon tomorrow." And I was like, my head kind of did this like, "What? It's a full moon? Well, what does that mean?" And he said, "Well, here in India, our tradition is that on the new moon and the full moon, we just take rest. We eliminate the amount of electricity that we use. We will stay at home. We'll be with family, and there are 2 days a month where it's a time for reflection and a time to just kind of decompress a little bit." And so at first it seemed foreign to me, and I didn't understand it, but then I started to really appreciate it, mainly because practicing with Patabi Joyce in India was so intense. He was the room, it was so hard. It was so challenging. It tested us to the nth degree. And so you practice 6 days a week, and then a moon day would come around, and I was so excited that was a moon day because I was like, "Oh my God, I could barely walk up the steps after our practice sessions because I was so sore." So now on that note, because that was a good 14 years ago that we were practicing there, I because that method is so dynamic and so challenging, I'm really interested nowadays in trying to make it more accessible for people. So, I mean, I have gone and taken my practice to the nth degree, and now with a little bit of wisdom, I'm looking back and wondering, did I really need to do that intensely? And I think that the answer now, from my perspective, is no. It can be very gentle and very effective. But I just wanted to comment a little bit on the Moon Day thing because it is hilarious that, I know when people hear that, they think, "Oh boy, here we go, yoga, no practice on the full moon. What is that all about?" Now, today is a full moon. I don't know if you all, and we have a hurricane coming our way here in Florida. The tides are rising really high because I'm sure maybe you're familiar or not, but with the full moon, the tides are higher than normal. And the energy around here was so intense. Like I was driving around, I was like, consciously trying to drive 10 miles an hour slower than everybody else because people are honking and just rushing to get everywhere. It's amazing what storms will do to people. So I say that because we have so much stress nowadays. We're under so much. It's like every day is another challenge, and sometimes I can't even believe how much stress is piling up. And yoga is really a great solution to dealing with this because it's so simple. All we really need to do is breathe and just take deep breaths. I mean, we can keep it really simple on that level, just starting to slow the breathing down. The current science points in the direction that to take about 5 to 6 breaths per minute. So that's about a 5 to 6 second inhale to a 5 to 6 second exhale. A lot of what we hear is people say, "Whoa, you need to breathe more." And we understand when we hear that, we understand what people are saying, like, "Whoa, just chill out, take a breath." But in actuality, it's not that we need to breathe more. We just need to try to breathe a little slower. And it's something that you can apply while you're driving around. It's definitely something that you can apply while you're working at a desk or on a computer. In the world of the computers, multitasking, we're spinning so many plates at once. We're constantly checking our phone, our computer. Some of us have multiple monitors all around us. And it's really important to stay focused, to stay focused. And how to do that, breathing is one of the best ways to just get really grounded and back down to earth. So I covered a little bit of territory off the moon idea there, but what do you guys
piggyback on something here?
I'm
real
glad you
fast.
did. Piggyback
please.
on that. I want to get to something, Chris, and then we're going to do some questions.
Okay, all right. I just want to piggyback because you just said it.
Please.
So I was it took me a little while to wrap my head around the whole breathing thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm very familiar with the concept of if I'm going to put effort and energy into something, make sure there's purpose to it.
Hmm.
So I then took that idea and applied it to the breathing. Like
Awesome.
if my breathing is purposeful and has like, if there's a purpose to my breathing, and that's for people that might have trouble with the idea and implementation of controlled breathing or box breathing, like me and other people who are probably like running all over the place. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Because I started big picture, not even with yoga or anything, just like, okay, if I'm going to have all this stuff coming at me, then the things that I work on have to have a purpose. And so, like I said, I applied that to the breathing. I'm like, okay.
That's a really good point. That's a
And,
great
you know,
point.
once I started thinking that way, I was like, okay, I can do breathing.
I agree. I know. Yeah, you're right, because you might think sometimes you hear this information and you go, "Oh, just breathe." That's so cliche. I'm already breathing. But having the intent, like you said, like a purpose to doing it. And I mean, I sometimes, I know I should never assume anything, but I assume all of us want to feel a little more at ease. And so, like you said, if our intent is in place, that the purpose of me working with just relaxing and doing a few simple breathing exercises in between a couple different tasks that I'm working on, then it makes perfect sense. So that's good insight. I appreciate that. Good one. Alonzo, what do you think? Are you working on any breathing exercises? I'm curious.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I always am. As I used to practice, I have over maybe 10, 15 years of martial arts experience, and
Cool.
trying to find a way where I'm able to continue to move, practice, do a lot of what they call jurus, which is a form of kata, as well as sparring with, going longer distances. Because you think about, okay, if I was taught to like breathe a lot so that you can get get your blood oxygenated, and I realized that it was more quantity over quality. So when I think about how you can apply the breathing and how I can do more of those deeper breaths, if this is applicable to the situation, to take in more, let my body focus on that, relax, focus on what I'm trying to do, instead of trying to mentally panic to keep my body breathing and oxygenated. And these are some of the things that are helping me to realize how I can be better. And then I think about also about how I love warrior culture. So I think about what the warriors and how the warriors use yoga to be stronger and more flexible back in those times when they were fighting. Is helpful for me, and it helps me, like we talked about behind the stage. I will be reaching out to you because I want to be more flexible. I want to be more adaptive to the things I need to do as I get older. So that's definitely where my mind is.
Yay. I love it. That sounds great.
And I'm going to address the medical part of the breathing and then let Todd talk about it in more depth. So we have something called an autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for the things that go on in the body. So things like sweating, things like your heart beating, things like breathing. Automatically, if we don't think about breathing, we breathe. And if we don't breathe, we die. So there's two parts of this nervous system. There's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for freezing, fighting, running away from muggers on the subway, okay? The parasympathetic nervous system is related to relaxation. Your blood vessels relax, you digest, you feel good, right? Now, here's the thing. The nervous system controls your breathing automatically. If you don't breathe, you die. So no matter what you're going to breathe, but you can also control your breathing. Like a Kalabati breathing or a nice slow. It can be whatever we want. So it actually turns out that the bridge between our freeze, fight, or flight nervous system and our relaxation nervous system is actually breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Todd, you can talk about this in far more depth than me, because in fact, one day we should do it as a video. One day Todd and I should be here and just do some Ujjayi breathing in a normal room, and you'll watch us sweat without moving, sitting in a chair. And likewise, Todd taught me how to do a cooling breath, where I get cold and chilled when I do it as well. So Todd, talk a little bit about breathing as the bridge, and then let's get to some questions.
Yes, thanks, Mike. So in a really simple explanation of exactly what you mentioned with these larger words like parasympathetic and sympathetic is that, either we're either getting revved up or we're going down, and the nervous system is constantly going through these fluctuations all day. And so a lot of us are in the revved up mode and living up there. And when we get down below that mode, where the nervous system's in that calm mode, that's where we rest and repair. And so when we're sleeping at night, we're in that rest and repair mode. So obviously we need our sleep, but it's possible to go into that rest and repair mode while we're awake. And so within the world of yoga breathing exercises, there's so many different exercises to choose from. But the idea really is just to keep it super simple in the beginning, and just having one of the ideas really is just creating a rhythm to the breath, so that if I don't know if you know what a metronome is, but a metronome, if you're a musician, it's just a timekeeper, like the old school metronomes would swing back and forth. And but you can get one on your phone, and it will just keep time for you, and it'll make like a tick, tick, tick sound, right? So you just set the metronome to a nice rhythm, and you start practicing and trying to breathe in for about 5 seconds and breathe out for 5 seconds, and just get that rhythm going. That's about the most simple breathing exercise or technique there is, and it has profound benefits. And in relation to a book that I read recently called Breath by James Nestor, if anyone out there likes to read, I highly recommend reading the book Breath by James Nestor. Wow. I mean, if it will bring so much clarity to how important breathing is. And so I love that book. So I always recommend that to everybody. And yes, Mike, I think that it's just a critical part. And the reason I think that we're spending so much time talking about the breathing part of the yoga practice right now is because it's something that we can do literally under any situation. So now there are pranayama techniques that involve breath retention, where we hold the breath. And there are really advanced breathing exercises that involve really long breath holds. That is recommended not to do while operating heavy machinery, such as a computer or a car, obviously, or something where, because you can get so deep down in that relaxed and repair mode that it has the ability to work like what people use drugs for. People are using drugs to try to calm the nervous system down. And really, we can access this through breathing. So, it's a fascinating subject. And I agree with you. I think if we do a session where it's just very specific to that, and we can do a couple of breathing exercises, I'd love to do that with you sometime for sure.
And I'd love to do that. We're going to get to the questions, but I want to let you guys know how humble Todd is versus how good he actually is.
I noticed the humble earlier when he said for a few years.
Todd's awesome.
Well, Todd'll cringe when I say this because it's not what yoga's about, but in his youth, he was in the Yoga Olympics.
Wow.
And, and I've seen Todd practice, and let me tell you, he's incredible. He also said, well, I studied with Pattabhi Jois in a casual method. That's where Ashtanga yoga came from Pattabhi Jois and his family in Mysore, India. Wow. And he also studied with his closest disciples like Tim Miller. So nobody gets closer to the source of Ashtanga yoga than Todd. So, I recommend following him. I'm not a paid sponsor. I'm wearing his shirt because I love the studio and I love how much he's helped me over the years. But I recommend, follow him. And my team's not letting me speak because of my overuse laryngitis.
Well, thank you, Mike. I mean, a big part of yoga, and I think also from the work that all of us are doing, no matter what career path we're in, is humility is a key ingredient. I know that in some respects, when we're getting coached in our careers, that, we're told to, really boast our ability and really talk about all of our achievements, but I've always kind of respected the people that were really amazing, that just are humble. And so, but thank you for boosting me up a little bit. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. But I think that humility is a huge part, because obviously when we start getting into yoga, there's, one thing we hear a lot about is our ego, and managing yoga is an ego management strategy as well. And so yeah, it's another subject, but thank you, Mike. That's kind of you. I really appreciate it.
I'm gonna interrupt before Mike tries to talk some more
Yeah.
here. So,
All right.
so I know we got quite a few questions
Yeah,
in
they're
the
coming
chat
in.
box. Do you want to do some of those first, Elonzo, before we ask some of our questions?
Yeah.
We
I there was one that really popped in my view by Mauricio.
Okay, let
And
me
he
find it.
was asking Todd, how would you define how yoga can help people to sleep better?
Ooh, that's a good one. Thank you, Mauricio. I appreciate the question.
I like this question a lot.
Yeah.
I wish I had thought of
Yes.
this myself.
Okay. So sleep is a big issue, and obviously you are aware of how much better you feel when you get a full night's sleep.
Yeah.
I personally have times where sleep is really easy, and I have times where sleep is not so easy. And so completely familiar with what you're talking about. Um, so one of the techniques that can help sleep is, so there's a pose in yoga called shavasana, and shavasana is where it's the simplest yoga pose out there. It's where you just lay on your back, you let your arms relax beside you with your palms up, and you just lie down. And so if you do that in bed, so you consciously lie flat, and it is okay to have a pillow under your head. It's okay to have a little pillow under your knees if you're experiencing low back discomfort. Sometimes when people lie flat on their backs, the way that the pelvis moves in relation to the lumbar spine, it can put a little compression in the lower back. So if you take a pillow and you prop it under your knees, so you just got a little bend, that can make your low back feel a little better. And then obviously you close your eyes and start doing that breathing exercise. Now, funnily enough, the one that I mentioned where you just breathe rhythmically, when I was a kid and I couldn't sleep, my parents would always tell me to imagine a fence and sheep are jumping over the fence, and you just start counting the sheep. And it's very simple, obviously, because our minds are just going and going and going and thinking about all the millions of things that we either came across during the day or we think about what we have to do tomorrow. And so taking the mind and putting it on something that's repetitive, like counting, simple counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just gets the mind to slow down and can help us fall asleep. It does take some practice. So I'm aware that right away, if you try that tonight, it might not you might not fall asleep in the first 5 seconds that you start. But the idea is as soon as your mind starts to go again, you forget. And so actually, instead of using sheep, we'll keep it more yoga style. And if you just start breathing in and out of your nose, if that's possible for you, if you can't breathe through the nose, open the mouth, breathe through the mouth, it's no problem. But if you can close the mouth and go in and out of the nose, and when you breathe in silently to yourself, you're just going to count 1, 2, 3. And when you breathe out, you're going to count 3, 2, 1. And you just start getting that nice little rhythm going. And as soon as your mind starts to go back to work, meaning, whatever it is that's keeping you awake, keep
Are you
coming
talking to me right
back.
now?
Keep coming. I know, and I'm preaching my own choir here. Keep coming back to. I know we're all in the same boat. I think you keep coming back to the breath like that. That's a really simple strategy that can work wonders. The other element, and again, I realize that you might have heard all these, but I just throw stuff out there for you. We want to try to turn the devices off a good hour before our bedtime. And quite honestly, setting a bedtime, I know people might say, oh, bedtime, you sound like an old guy. I am an old guy now. you want to set a bedtime. I set my bedtime for 10 o'clock, and when it's 10, I try, and it might take me a little while. The more annoying thing is when you wake up at 2 a.m., and you don't have your alarm set till 5. You'll get that 2 or 3 hours right off the bat because you're exhausted. You sleep 3 hours, and all of a sudden you're wide awake. Definitely do not pick up your phone and get on the computer. I know it'll be tempting because you'll think, I could get more work done. I could just get ahead for tomorrow. That's not a good idea because you're going to start activating your nervous system all over again. So just go right into consciously try to lay on your back if that's comfortable. If that's not comfortable, figure out what is comfortable. If you have to side lay and put a pillow under your knees. What Chris had mentioned earlier was really a great point about just having a conscious intention behind a practice. And so a simple practice like, I'm going to roll on my side and put a pillow in between my knees. This is my sleep position. So you're very clear that I want to fall asleep. Start doing some simple breathing and counting. And this can definitely help. I hope that helps, Mauricio. And
I'm just going to say a little something on this, and not related to yoga at all.
Please.
But this comes from me having worked 12 years in the hotel industry, where we couldn't turn our things off. I was the last responsible party should something catastrophic happen at the hotel. So I couldn't turn my things off. But not everybody's in that position. And Lady Godiva put it in the chat box over here. And I tell our staff at Go Cloud Careers this: do not disturb is your friend. Turning off notifications at a reasonable time. Yeah, you can. The bad thing and the good thing about technology is that it's with you all the time, but you can control it. Yeah. So use your if you turn me, it took me almost a year to actually follow through and do it. I have my notification set to turn off at 8 p.m. so that nothing bothers me. I mean, I'll still be checking my stuff, but eventually about 9, I actually stop. I actually stop looking at things. I actually put things down. And but we have the tools out there to be able to cut off our distractions and the things that bother us. It's just a matter of actually doing it. And so
that's a really good point.
To say that because, like I said, I saw it in the chat box. She said, "Do not disturb is your friend when you're trying to sleep." Use it. Use the do not disturb options. Yeah,
I agree. I think in the tech world, I've noticed that as I've started to implement more and more of it as a yoga professional or yoga practitioner and teacher. To be really honest, 20 years ago, I remember when the internet was just people were just starting to talk about the internet. I, at that point, didn't use a computer and was thinking, I'll never have a computer. That's just not going to be me. I just won't need a computer. And now I love my computer. I mean, I absolutely love the fact that I can communicate with you right now, and we can be so many miles apart. And what an incredible technology. And I'm noticing more and more that when I take conscious rest times away from my technology and have a really simple ritual, I noticed earlier, Mike, you were drinking a cup of tea, and before bed, just having a little ritual where you boil some water and you pour a cup of tea, and you're like, this is for me preparing to go to bed, and little stuff like that, little simple stuff, but just come up with a personal ritual or something that you do that's designed because you're preparing to sleep well. And it can really work. If we set our intentions where we want to go, it's possible. And so I love that question. Thank you.
That's helpful. I'm a partial insomniac. I can't sleep for more than 4 hours at a block, and then I'll be up for an hour to 45 to an hour. Then I'll maybe drift off for a little bit, but most of the time, I can't sleep through the night. So this is one of the things that I would like to learn that. That would be helpful for me because I cannot turn my mind off. I'm always thinking.
I hear you.
Strategy.
I hear you, Elonzo. I know, and another element where why the yoga practice works so well is that the breathing is a big part of it, but there is a physical part that involves moving the body, stretching the body, releasing tension out of the musculature through the yoga postures, and the process of generating some heat and moving and stretching the body serves as a good way to kind of process all this information that's coming at us all day long. And it does help to sleep as well. If we're not getting proper exercise, and I understand how hard it is because it's like with our work day, like literally we could work 12 hours a day now and like nonstop and be done and still feel like I have so much more to go. Like the way that the hamster wheel of
Mike, looking at you, Mike,
of marketing, it's a really challenging thing to balance because it's so exciting. I mean, what we can do with tech is absolutely amazing, so I get it. And the sleep thing is a huge part of it. And just recently, I had such a good night's sleep. I've been like you, Elonzo, where I've been getting up really early. I'm just like, because I'm just needing to just relax and chill out. And but I had a really good night's sleep the last 2 nights. And I mean, I woke up feeling like I can't believe how good I feel. So I'm also an avid seeker of sleep. I'm a huge fan of sleep. Interestingly enough, there's a yoga technique called yoga nidra, and nidra means sleep. I have a podcast called Native Yoga Toddcast, and you can find it on all the places. And I have a episode, I don't remember what number it is, but it's called Yoga Nidra, and you can play it, it's free. And I just read, I talk you into a relaxation where it has a little bit of visualization to kind of help you relax. And it's called yoga sleep. And there's this whole yoga technique. What's really interesting about this is, a whole different element of yoga, but where there's this idea of where that state in between the waking state and the sleeping state is a place where we can absorb a lot of information. Some people learn languages by putting like language tapes on right when they're starting to fall asleep. And if you don't enjoy learning language, that might be a great way to fall asleep because it'll be like, oh my God.
I'll tell you that works for languages, but it doesn't work for learning IP addresses and subnetting and BGP.
Right. Let's add that disclaimer right now.
We've had people try that with our training program. It's like, no, too dense, too complex.
Too complex. Yeah. I mean, you'll have to find the right thing for you, but using something that's really soothing, and there's wonderful tools out there. The Yoga Nidra, check that out, look it up. There's some really great recordings that you can use that can help you to calm down and relax right when you're going to sleep.
Well, I gotta say, I love the play on words with Toddcast. That did not go past me. I thought that was awesome. That's the marketer in there. I said, that's catchy. I like that.
I got to tell you guys a story about how generous Mike is. So right in March of 2020, I was in such denial about how 2020 was going to turn out. So when the reality hit and we had to close our studio, I mean, I go to the studio 6 days a week. I work. I love my studio. I mean, I can't tell you how much I love holding space for people to do yoga. For me, it's like you, Elonzo, like the warrior culture. I'll die fighting to keep my studio going. You know what I mean? Like it's a big deal for me to keep it going. And so I'd always had a dream of doing a podcast, and Mike had some podcasting gear that he hadn't used, and or he used, and then just it was sitting there. And I said, Mike, man, I really think I could do a podcast. I really think I could do it. And he came in one day with this podcasting gear and said, Todd, just get started. And if you want to use it, you can purchase it off of me. And that was huge because you know what it's like when you're trying to get started in something new, to buy all this new gear, and for me to convince my wife that it's a good idea. And so Mike
Yeah.
just he made it totally possible for me to get started. And I love podcasting. It's a passion of mine. It's a total passion project, and it's in a way it saved my life because you know, I was really just like, what in the world is going on? And I started reaching out to other yoga professionals and interviewing them all over the world. And hey, what's going on over there in Australia? Hey, what's going on in Indonesia? What's happening up in Canada and California and Boston? And as I could hear their stories, it just kind of gave me so much motivation to keep doing what we were doing, even though it was a really challenging time. So I think I guess I wanted to tell you that story because, you know, thank you, Mike. You keep pushing me to be better and really pushing me to level up my skills on the international level or on the global level, because to be honest, a lot of it's about self-esteem. I always kind of just didn't think I could do it. You know, I loved yoga and I felt like there was this disconnect between yoga and technology where how could I bring something like yoga into the technology world? And I'm realizing it's possible. And I guess that's why I'm excited to be with you guys, because I think I want to bring the yoga into the technology world, just like I needed to bring technology into my yoga world. You know, I think they're very symbiotic, and I think they both need each other to grow and stay strong.
I don't think anybody here is surprised by that story about Mike. We all experienced that.
I see a Todd Mclaughlin yoga app in the near future.
Yeah,
well, you should see the
we
tech.
probably got some people in our
I like your
community that
vision.
can make that
You
happen.
should see the tech
Oh my
Todd
gosh.
has now. He's got RAID arrays. He's got studio grade cameras. He's got 16-core streaming servers in there.
Oh, wow.
What he's doing now is totally new level.
So Angelo had a good couple of questions. Angelo asked, how can we develop consistency maintaining our physical and emotional health?
Angelo always comes with
And how is physical health related to emotional well-being? Angelo's always got good questions, by the way.
Nice. I love that. Well, good question. Okay, emotional well-being. So obviously, well, taking good care of ourselves in terms of good nutrition, lots of water, plenty of sleep, definitely improves emotional health without a doubt. So really simple things like eat well, drink lots of water, get some rest. Because as you've observed, when you start to lack on any of those fronts, like diet goes downhill and escalates further in that direction, you start feeling worse. And then there's that emotional component. And it just continues in that direction. So putting concerted effort into taking care of ourselves, absolutely enormous. Now, in terms of how to stabilize emotional health, I think we need to take into account that all of us are really unique. So, like, I have friends that are just rock solid, you know, and they just seem to stay so consistent. Nothing ever bothers them. And I'm a little more emotional. You know, I get a little more emotional. I can watch a movie and start just crying, you know, this is some touching story. Like, I can cry really easy, you know, I'm just a little more emotional. So, I like to feel balanced and stable. So but I'm also a fan of letting emotion happen. So if you are feeling emotion, I want to express it. I want you to express it. But in the professional environment, we do need to. When I go in to teach a class, and this is an analogy for what you're doing as well. When you're going into your professional environment, whatever I have going on in my personal life, I know that I need to just check that at the door. You know, when I'm coming in, even though with my close friends, and it's tricky because I get to know the students so well that if I'm having a really rough day, I want to tell them about what's going on. But the professional side of me knows that I need to be there for them. You know, they don't need to hear all my stuff right now. I need to be present for them. So I think that's an important part, at least from the professional side, is like finding that really fine balance of being real, being honest, letting emotion be expressed, and at the same time, knowing when to just put it on the back burner. And that is very challenging to do, I admit. What is a technique for being able to do that? You know, I think that one thing that I do is I know for a fact, because people come out of class, people come out of practice, and they say, I feel so much better. And for me to muddy that up with, now let me tell you a bunch of horrible, challenging things that I'm going through, it doesn't really help that situation. So I think finding the appropriate place to let the emotion fly, you know, finding appropriate outlets for emotion to come up. And that's where I think yoga practice is real. My mom passed a year ago, but my mom practiced at my studio for the last, we've been open here in Juno Beach for the last 16 years. And my mom got me doing yoga about 20 years ago. And I remember my mom would come in, and she would just start crying, you know, in Shavasana. She would just start letting loose. And I would just give her the space to do it. You know, I didn't have to go up to her, and you know, I would always go up and say, "Mom, are you all right?" And she would just let me know that she just needed her space, and it was appropriate for that. And I think yoga is a great place to, if emotions come up, you just let it happen. Now, in the yoga world, the idea is like, we think of emotions like clouds, and clouds are just coming and going. Some days the sky is super clear, blue, no clouds at all. Some days, like today, we got lots of clouds and storm. It's always going to fluctuate. To think that we can control and make it sunny every single day is a little unrealistic, but we want to try to become more an observer of the clouds, more of an observer of the emotion. And that way, you know, you let them come through and you let them go out. And holding on to it and building up resentment is not healthy. And so, but find the appropriate place to let the emotion come out, you know, and try to remain professional. Did that answer? I hope I stayed on track there. Did I touch upon anything that made sense for y'all?
You did great. Yeah. I liked it. And I think about how it was so wonderful for your mother to be enriched by yoga. And I think about how, when it comes to your everyday students, how has yoga made a difference in their lives? And do they have any stories that you could share with us?
Oh yeah. Okay, first story that pops into my mind. So my wife and I, before we opened up here in Juneau, we were running a yoga studio in San Diego in California. And a girl that was coming regularly, she was mid-20s. And then I didn't see her for about a couple months. And she came back in, and she told me how she had gotten in a car accident where the car had got crunched so tight that she was squeezed in the car, and they had to use the jaws of life, which I guess is like this thing they use to get you out. And yep. And she came in and she said, if it wasn't for my yoga practice, I wouldn't have survived that, because I was in such a confined space and I was so scared that right away I just remembered being in the yoga room and that I could control I could control this intensity somehow. And she came in saying that she attributed her survival to her ability to utilize yoga on a really intense level like that, where it was a life or death situation. So that one was really impactful for me. When I heard that, I was just blown away. I thought, wow, I didn't expect to hear that from somebody. There's this, I've heard people who have asthma, who have had really intense asthmatic situations, where they've been able to learn how to, now I'm a fan of the medical profession, and I'm a fan of utilizing medical technology. So I just want to be really clear that yoga won't necessarily replace anything such as an inhaler or things that we need for asthma, but I have had students that have been able to use their inhaler less because they've been able to learn how to read the signs right away when an asthma is starting to kick in, and somehow control their nervous system to not have it turn into a full-blown asthma attack. So I have heard that. Um, there's so many. One that I just want to tell personally, because what I'll notice is that so nobody likes pain. I don't like pain. I'm pretty sure you don't like pain. Um, maybe there's someone out there that does. That's another story. But you know, but most people don't. Most people are trying to avoid it. And usually what happens is we'll have pain somewhere, and we can rehab it, and we'll go for a period of time, and then pain will pop up somewhere else. And chronic pain is something that's really challenging to deal with. And so learning to, I had a shoulder issue where I really just didn't think my shoulder was ever going to get better. And I even, Mike's a good body worker, and he actually, helped me out doing some pressure point work. And I mean, my shoulder was so sore. And so in my head, I start thinking, it's never going to get better, right? We're so negative. We can be so negative on ourselves with, our situation. And my shoulder feels great now. Other areas hurt. It moves
moving
around.
target.
It moves around, but developing this framework of understanding and knowing that there are challenges that we're facing. Yoga can help, and if we're really patient and we're very thoughtful and we're intelligent about the things that we do and the way we work, the way that we move, that transformation can definitely occur. Can I keep going? Can I try to think of another story? There's so many good ones.
Yeah.
In terms of benefits for yoga, what's another one recently? Let me think. Somewhere around the realm of neck issues. Okay, another really big one. Okay, so neck. There are poses in yoga that a lot of you might have heard of, such as a headstand. My first memory of seeing a yoga pose was on the Addams Family. This is really old school. So I'm 49. When I would get out of school back in my middle school days, we had about 10 television stations, and TBS had Addams Family on in the afternoon when I would come home from school. Well, Mr. Adams was in a headstand one day, and I remember seeing on TV going, what in the world is he doing? What is that? He's upside down on his head. I mean, I was so enamored with that concept. And so I love headstanding, but the reality is if we look at our spines, the vertebrae at the base of the spine are really big, and the vertebrae at the top of the spine are pretty small. Now, if we have any cervical dysfunction, if we have any issues going on, herniated discs, or we have some stenosis, which is where the bone kind of grows a bit and gets really stiff, standing on our heads is not a good idea. It's not smart. Now, some people can do it and have no problems whatsoever. And some people, myself included now, I don't stand on my head anymore. I figured out other things that I can do to get the same benefit of inverting the body without putting unnecessary pressure on my neck and cervical vertebra. So I say that because I've seen people also come in and start to try to do these really complicated yoga poses. They looked at a picture in a book or a magazine, and they thought that for me to be a good yogi or a yoga practitioner means I got to be able to do these really complicated postures. Because they start doing postures that they're not really developed for yet, and they injure themselves a little bit, that we start to relearn how to approach the position, pulling way, way, way back. And then we understand, okay, wow, I felt a little bit of discomfort because of that. I was trying to jump ahead. Let me get back to the basics. Sometimes we want to get to the final goal right away. And there's so much more joy in learning the fundamentals, coming down, pulling back, getting down the basics, and just figuring out how to get a little bit of strength in the upper body and in the shoulders. I know this applies as well into career development too. We want to get to the top right off, and we got to be willing to get down in the trenches in the beginning and just do the hard work that it takes to start to cultivate core, to start to cultivate some ease in the body, some flexibility, and all these different things. So I just wanted to add that one other element in terms of where there can be big improvement with students is watching this process of the realization of it's actually more fun and harmonious to start working on the fundamentals than it is to rush and jump ahead to the pinnacle right off the bat.
So it goes back to humility.
Goes back to humility. Now, yoga's helped me, especially the yoga I've learned from Todd and or one or two other people. I was so badly injured, 13 doctors told me I'd never walk again. Now, Chris and Elonzo make me do yoga. I have my P2 routine getting down the stairs in the morning. And sometime around noon, they'll call me and say, have you practiced yoga yet today? Because if not, you better do it now. I think they think I'm nicer, calmer, more functional. I don't know what it is, but they literally call me and say, did you do yoga today?
Yeah. Keep encouraging me, you guys.
We always want to make sure he's well, happy, he's eating. You know, we're kind of like, you know, father hen and, you know, but we want to make sure he's good to go.
And I appreciate that. They know that I'll forget to eat. I'll just keep working 3 days in a row straight, not sleep, and then I fall apart.
Yes. Well, can I ask you guys a question?
Please.
All right. What is the one thing, let me start with Chris, what's the one thing holding you back from doing a 5-minute, you probably already have a routine, so sorry if you already have something going, but what's holding you back from doing say a 5 to 10 minute practice each day?
Discipline.
Yeah, I hear that one. Good answer.
I'm transparent.
Yeah.
I don't have the discipline.
Yeah.
I have the discipline to take my nap, but
well, that's good. At least you're getting your rest.
Yeah, just lack of discipline. Truly.
Yeah,
it is.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good.
And lack of prioritization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I truly were to prioritize things, I would put myself at the top, but my physical and mental self at the top, but a lot of times it gets put down at the bottom.
Yeah. Good point. That's a big one for sure. Elonzo, what about you?
Well, let's see. Kids, wife, honeydew list.
Yeah.
By the time it's inverted from Chris. So by the time, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. So once everyone gets addressed, it's homework, things to do, problems to solve, then it gets to me. And, I try to get to the gym. I do my best to get there at least 4 times a week. If I can't, then I try to get to the garage and do something. If that just goes out the window because, if anyone knows me, they'll see my son pop in every once in a while. He's virtual. So he goes virtually at school, at home. So, trying to manage the circus all at once, everything needs to shift in prioritization. So that's where I get to that point where, forget it. I'm throwing it out the window. I'm just going to go to Soul City, get the remote control and call it a day. That's the honest.
I hear you, man. That's a really good point, to try to squeeze in another thing into an already busy schedule is challenging. What do you think, Mike? What would I know I'm not supposed to get you talking too much here, but I know you already.
He's about to answer a question anyway, so we'll let him answer your question and then
all right,
knock this other question.
And Mike,
out.
I know you're really consistent. Because you tell me every day. You'll send me messages. I did this practice today. You're also really inquisitive. You're always asking, like, what do you think if I do this transition from this head to knee pose over into this twisting head to knee pose? Do you think that's a reasonable thing to do? So I know you're on it on the super regular, but you can offer some advice too. What do you think in relation to Chris's idea in terms of discipline, and or Alonzo said in terms of fitting time in? What's a good strategy from your perspective?
It's a great question, and I always used to travel 200,000-300,000 miles per year. So I would either wake up 1 hour earlier to start yoga, or when I can, and sometimes I can, I always integrate it through my day. So for example, I might be sitting at a desk. I'll do some desk yoga. I'll get into a revolved triangle pose. Then, 2 minutes later, the cat will come in the room, and I'll get into like a yogi squat called malasana with the cat. It gives me a chance to pet the cat. Then when I'm on my way to cooking lunch, I'll do something. But to me, it's just a matter of I've always found the time. I've done yoga in an airplane, which looked a little ridiculous, but I've done it. I do yoga in airports. No matter where I'm at, we all find time to do the 1 or 2 things that are important to us. If it's a nap, great. If we need that, to me, I'll get my exercise in. But, however we do it is all fine. It's just, it's to me now, but I don't have a choice though. You have to remember, I have something called reflex sympathetic dystrophy. And if I don't do yoga or don't get exercise, I could lose my ability to walk. So for me, I don't have a choice. It's like, there's this impending doom that's always hanging over me that forces me to get my exercise in each day.
Yes. Well, that's a good point. Yeah. Once you get that sort of understanding of how critical it is for, in this case, like you said, with your health, like if I don't do it, then I can't perform my normal tasks. So, well, I'm glad you guys answered that, because I'm always trying to look for ways to make it more accessible for people. So
here's one piece of
please.
Here's one piece of advice: find a yoga buddy. Chris, could you put up my yoga buddy who's doing Ashtanga pose right now? And there's a reason I'm saying this. Find a friend.
Oh yeah. Let me get.
Find a friend. But I actually practice yoga with my cat, and that's her doing a seated forward bend. She's real good at it, but I do practice yoga with my cat. And every sun salutation, when I get into that downward facing dog's pose, she kisses me, which I think is very sweet. I get into a seated pose, she gets underneath me. But whatever it is, bring your friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your yoga buddy. When you have somebody that goes with you, it's pretty hard not to do it. So, the SEALs have a concept called a swim buddy. And I tell all my students, find yourself a swim buddy. Find someone that will live and die next to you, that no matter what, you never abandon. And by doing that, I think it forces you to stay consistent.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I always notice that when people come in for classes, that when they come with a friend, it holds them accountable a little bit more. So usually back to like that the question about emotional balance, that if we have a friend that when we're a little down and we both made the plan to practice together at the same time, at least, one thing I've found really fascinating about the online element is I'll have there's a woman that lives in Ireland, and her sister will come in, and while her sister's in Ireland practicing through the live stream, and they set it up so let's practice yoga together, even though one is over here and one is over there, but they're making a pact with each other to show up. And then when one's feeling a little down or not motivated, it's like, oh gosh, I gotta go. I'm accountable. I gotta go. So I think that's great advice, Mike. That's a really good point. And then kind of what I'm thinking too for Chris and Elonzo, I'll try to come up with like just a 1 minute practice plan.
Hey,
1 minute a day.
There we go.
I bet you guys can squeeze a minute in.
Oh yeah.
I'll go for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's do this,
Right.
Todd. Let's build a 5-minute Chris and Alonzo yoga
Whoa,
class.
whoa.
I'll go
5
for that.
minutes.
We just multiplied that 5 times. Hey, I don't know.
It's hard for me to turn down a challenge, so I'll go for it. I'll throw it out.
All right, it's on. It's on you
That's
guys.
a 500% increase. Started at 1 minute.
We can come up
Now
with let's come up with a yoga nap pose for Chris.
I can get down with that. All right.
Soon
So
you guys are gonna throw it back at me, and I'm gonna have to do the AWS training with you guys. And
Anytime you want.
oh, all right. Let's get. There's a question I know that Mike wants to get to. That came in the chat box.
Melanie
So
Vision asked why don't you read the question?
yeah, let me read the question. You just let me read the question and then start my stopwatch. All
Where's
right.
the buzzer?
Yeah. How does yoga help with blood pressure?
And I'm going to address this now. First, this is not a substitute for medical advice, even though I'm a medical professional. I don't know your history, can't practice on a straight line, so see your doctor first. Now that I've caveated that, here's what happens. In our body, we've got this sympathetic nervous system, also called the alpha adrenergic system. And in ordinary life, we've got the relaxation part and the stress part. Now, when we get stressed, our blood vessels constrict. And as we get stressed, our body produces epinephrine and norepinephrine. You may have heard it called adrenaline and cortisol. Now, this causes the heartbeat to beat faster. It causes the blood vessels to be tighter. And when you have a container, like your blood vessels, and the container has a certain amount of volume in it, and you compress it down, the blood pressure goes up. So there's types of drugs called alpha adrenergic blockers, like Catapres, that I would prescribe to patients that had high blood pressure. There's beta blockers, which are another type of thing, which I would also prescribe. And we give these drugs basically to relax the blood vessel walls, to make the container bigger. And the container is bigger, there's lower pressure. So as we practice yoga, and we're breathing and we're activating our parasympathetic nervous system, our blood vessels tend to dilate, which can often reduce our blood pressure. Now, subsequently, when we exercise, that also burns calories, which can also reduce our body weight, which then places less workload on the heart. Additionally, as we exercise, we tend to burn glucose and glycogen, which lowers our blood sugar. And if our blood sugars are too high, again, our blood pressure is too high because our blood is too sticky or too thick. So yoga can help us in a lot of ways to reduce our blood pressure and improve our health. Now, again, other forms of exercise can also help with blood pressure, and we're not recommending yoga exclusively. Although if you were to take a very aggressive athletic kind of yoga, the kind Todd can teach in an Ashtanga class, that can meet your strength, mobility, as well as your cardiovascular conditioning under certain cases. And yoga can very much lower blood pressure, but it's not the only solution. Medications may still be needed. Medications may not be needed. Diet is also part of it. But yoga can be part of a blood pressure management strategy and a healthy living strategy. But again, you have to get that monitored by your physicians. I've seen people who exercise that didn't need blood pressure medication anymore. But they lost 30, 40, 50 pounds. They got healthy. They changed their diet. But the last thing you want to do is stop taking a blood pressure medication until it's all under control. So work on this with your doctor. But yoga can be an assistance to a lot of things related to health.
Good answer, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah. I figured that'd be a good Mike question.
I'm glad you were here for that one, Mike.
Yeah. He was chomping at the bit for that one.
Well, every once in a while I get to use my medical background for something, and I kind of like it.
Hey.
Yep.
I can't find the buzzer fast enough. All right. Anyway, so I've got a question, and I don't think we've answered the question. We may have talked about it a little bit. So I wanted to talk about work. And I mentioned this earlier. I didn't talk about, I was telling Todd before the show my sitting arrangement right now. I'm literally like sitting at a kid's table. Like I'm at a kid's vanity table right now. So my knees have nowhere to go. The chair that I'm sitting in is horrible. But, how can yoga help with the negative effects that we have of sitting at a desk all day, regardless of if it's a kid's vanity table that I can't fit at, or if it's a properly sized office desk? Well, sitting at the desk is not the best thing for our bodies. So what are some things, and how can yoga help with that?
Great question. And so obviously sitting in a chair for long periods of time can get extremely uncomfortable. Probably a couple of different approaches, and I'm in terms of yoga is there are exercises you can do while seated at the chair. Generally speaking, the main areas that people get tight is in the upper trapezius, in the back. You have muscles along your back that when they contract, they hold you up. And the classic position in the desk is to be in a flexed position with our shoulders slumped forward. And so there is a position in yoga called cow and cat. And cow pose is where we squeeze our back muscles and do a gentle back bend. And cat pose is a flexion position, and that's where you round your spine and stretch the muscles on your back. I know that when we're working, we're typically more in that flex position. So the main counter pose is to really just kind of get the chest up and pull the shoulders back. So while working, it's possible to be on the computer and practice cow and cat postures with our back. Now, another thing in terms of sitting, if we can sit with our feet flat on the floor and have our hips just slightly raised, or like knee level or just slightly raised, is going to be a little bit better than if you're up high and your legs are kind of hanging off the edge of the chair a lot. So being able to get your feet flat so that you actually can tilt your pelvis forward and back a little bit. One of the restrictions in being able to to go into an extension position where you open the front of your body and do the opposite of hunching is to have our hamstring muscles, which are the muscles on the back of our legs, start to loosen up. And like one of the most classic areas for everybody that sits in a chair is to have tight hamstrings. So if we could stand up and get out of the chair and take, even if out of every 60 minutes that we work, if we could say every 20 minutes, just stand up for a minute and do a couple of simple yoga stretches. And there's so many different, we could come up with say 3 to 5 that are going to be really effective for
so we're going to put those in mine and Alonzo's 5-minute plan, right?
Let's do that. That'll be a great focus. Just simple postures that can be done for 1 to 2 minutes every 20 minutes. And your productivity can go up tremendously, because when we start to go into pain, if we start getting back pain from hunching over, then that starts to wear on us, and then our productivity starts to go down. So even though we might think, well, I don't have 2 minutes to stop, I got to keep going, we might actually achieve more in that hour if we take, say, a 2-minute break every 20 minutes than we would if we just stayed locked in for 60 minutes in painful position. So there's obviously a whole bunch of different type of seats you can sit in, and being that you all are tech pros, you probably have seen the big exercise balls that you can sit on that can give you a little bit of bounce, so it's not such a hard surface to be on, that you can roll and rock a little bit. We've seen standing tables where you can work in a standing position, so maybe even to have a standing table and a sitting table that you could alternate back and forth from is a good one. And there are simple things that we can do just with our arms and our shoulders, in terms of arms above the head, and or simple shoulder stretches where we could have like a little prop, like a strap or a ring, where you can grab them behind the back to kind of work the shoulder stretch. There's so endless things that we can just do while we're seated with our upper bodies. Neck tension, really simple. Like normally, I think it's an innate thing. Like yoga really comes out of innate intelligence. So if you have sore neck, naturally, without doing any sort of conscious stretching, you're going to start moving, your body to start to stretch it out. So, but having a couple of really simple neck stretching exercises, some shoulder stretching exercises, and as far as the low back and the hips getting uncomfortable, standing up is going to be an important thing to do to get some circulation down into the legs. On an interesting note, one thing I love about fascinated about the India culture, and India's people sit on the floor a lot, and almost everybody's hips are so flexible. And so it's really interesting to see culturally how our bodies have adapted to our cultural norms, such as sitting in a chair, pain in low back, tight hamstrings. So
I
yes,
actually
there's a
have
whole
a follow-up
yes,
question about that. That's
please.
kind of that's tied to this whole like work from home that we've become a part of in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, people aren't at desks. People are on their couches. People are
That's
on
a good point.
their
Yeah,
bean bags.
yeah,
People are in
Ooh.
their
yeah,
recliners.
yeah.
What you may not have any insight into this, but
Yeah.
what detriment might there be to sitting in your recliner for
Lot.
6 hours a day versus
Yeah.
sitting at your desk for 6 hours, or sitting on your couch in six
Yeah.
different positions trying to do your work?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing I think of in terms of sitting in a recliner for 6 hours a day, I mean, really, we got to get some cardiovascular activity going on. Like if we just sit, if we sit sedentary for that long, it is just not good physically, but really mentally. I mean, the best thing we can do is to get up and go for a little walk, and just to get some blood flow going. So I wouldn't recommend hanging out in a recliner for that long. Um, but a recliner, if someone has back pain, might actually be a much more comfortable position for them than sitting on a hard surface. Now, there's a lot to be
That's
said
one
for,
thing.
yeah,
I was
please.
going to say I've taken advantage working at home to work in different places so that
Yeah,
I'm not in
that's,
my I
yeah,
don't have a recliner. I have a it's like a lounge chair or something. I don't know what it's actually called, but I'll sit in that for a little bit, and then I'll sit on the
yeah.
sofa for a little bit. Then I'll sit at the dining table for a little bit, and then I'll sit and I move around so that I'm not in the same place all the time.
I I think that's great. I mean, I think that's probably one of the benefits of being in a home environment is it's a little more flexible than say working in a cubicle and or in an office. So you have more options. There's also really great self massage tools such as like it's like a curved stick that wraps around. You can get that on your back and you can do some like self massage technique. I happen to have right here for it's like a it vibrates, but it lets you put this under your back. But something that you don't have to buy is you can get two tennis balls and put it in a sock and tie the end of the sock off, and you put this on your back and you can kind of roll on it a little bit. So there's a whole bunch of self-care tools and techniques that we can implement. I'm a huge fan of using ice packs too. I mean, if you are in the home environment and you have a sore area of the body, you could be using ice and heat. You can start
We actually have
utilizing
a
some of these.
question from that I was going to bring in that Chow
Oh, cool.
asked.
Yeah.
Chow asked,
Hi, Joe.
"What is your opinion on integrating yoga with heat, and does it have any real benefits?"
Okay, so great question. I'm sure you're familiar. If you're not, there's a style of yoga called hot yoga, and the room is made extremely hot, upwards of 115 or more. The heat works like an analgesic, so it can reduce musculoskeletal pain. So the heat is a wonderful tool for getting the body to sweat. So it's just by drinking lots of water and sweating, you feel great. It's really good for the skin. It can really clear up the skin and bring some color. It does increase flexibility. The thing I would just want to mention is that there are people that are against working in the heat because the only challenge with the heat sometimes is that if it's really hot, you'll be unusually flexible and you might push too far. So there's an element like so there's the style of yoga. I was trained in hot yoga, so I studied under Bikram Chowdhury and got certified in that style first and used to run a hot yoga studio. So I'm very familiar and working in the heat. And Then I switched over to working in a style that where we generate our heat. So heat is definitely a big important ingredient, but we generate our heat through the movement. One is an external source of heat, and the other is an internal source of heat. I'm also a really big fan of a moderate amount of external heat and a moderate amount of internal heat to kind of build a blend between both of those aspects, because heat is amazing. I mean, I don't know, Chow, where you live, but I'm here in Florida and it's a really humid climate. But when I've traveled up, I had a chance to go practice and teach up in Buffalo, New York in the middle of winter, and it was snowing, it was freezing cold. And they had heaters in the floor, and so it was like a floor heat system, but the air was so dry. And I felt like it was burning my nose hairs out. It was so hot in there, but it was so dry. I still didn't even sweat. And so the climate that we live in has a lot to do with how our bodies respond, and then the season as well. So if I'm in a really cold climate, a hot room is just a joy. Here in Florida, it's so hot in the summer that, just the normal room temp with a little bit of up and down dog or a little bit of cow cat, and we're sweating buckets here. So long story short, to reel it in, I think heat is an essential part of the practice, but I'm a fan of moderate heat. Mike,
And
I know
Chow,
you love heat. I know you love the heat. Yeah.
and Chow's actually one of our team. She's an incredible cloud architect and amazing person. And she hears me talking about my ridiculous setup, which you've seen my ridiculous setup. I heat the room to 130 degrees and practice yoga in there. Now, here's the thing, Chow. I've done a lot of hot yoga, Bikram yoga, but it always comes down to it. I always go back to Todd's yoga because it's much more accessible. You can do it at any age. It's not crazy. There's no dogma there. It's all pristine in there. So what I do is typically Todd's yoga in either outside in 95-degree Florida weather when I'm looking for cool yoga, or I heat my room to like 130, practice yoga in that, and then I jump in my 160-degree studio. What I like about it is, Chow, I've got a lot of injuries and a lot of pain and a neuropathy that causes my blood vessels to close. So for me, Chow, it's very good. I'd say try both, but Chow, take some of Todd's yoga. I recommend it for you, Chow. Chow, you work for us. Chow, you're amazing in every single way, and I think it'll be good for you.
Yeah, good answer, Mike, and that's a good question, Chow. Thank you. Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. Lady Godiva, I appreciate that one.
Yeah, so Lady Godiva asked, what is Ashtanga yoga? I don't know if I said that correctly.
You did.
And I took Kundalini many years ago, and know that there are different types.
Yay, great question. Okay, you're right. There are a lot of different types of yoga, and it's when I first started practicing yoga, I just thought there's yoga and yoga's yoga. And in reality, yoga's yoga. So, but it gets a little bit more complicated in terms of all these different styles. Kundalini yoga is a method of yoga. So Kundalini goes a little bit more down the esoteric route of yoga. But to keep it a little less esoteric, the main idea is that the spinal column is the main storehouse of energy moving from your brain to your limbs. So the spinal cord is obviously extremely important. And Kundalini is about trying to raise our energy. So we could think of it simply like, if I'm really tired and lethargic, what can I do to raise my energy so I feel better and more alive and more alert? So Kundalini yoga utilizes a lot of what I mentioned earlier, the cow and cat position, and you do a lot of rocking motion with the spine. So you're obviously familiar with this because you took some Kundalini classes. There's a lot of twisting motions where you'll coordinate breathing and do some twisting with the primary goal of improving our energy. Ashtanga yoga is a method that is in a family or style called Vinyasa yoga. Vinyasa yoga is the coordination of breath and movement, which is breath movement synchronicity. A real simple element is like if I inhale and I bring my arms above my head, I'm going to try to inhale while I'm raising my arms up, and exhale, I'm going to relax and bring my arms down while I exhale. So the technique of Vinyasa or Ashtanga is to bring the breath and the movement, so that the question of, well, is the breath leading the movement or is the movement leading the breath? It's hard to answer because they're so connected. And it's so that creates we have to concentrate to do that. And so that's what Ashtanga yoga primarily is focused on, is building concentration. Now, also though, all forms of yoga are really about improving our energy, just overall health and wellness. So I think Ashtanga and Kundalini have the same goal. They just have a little different way of going about it. And I actually think they're both really complementary practices. I actually believe all yoga practices are relatively complementary to each other. But the advice that my teachers gave me when I originally started practicing is they said, start with one style of practice. Don't try to shop around too much at first. Just start with one, get grounded in it. And then if you move to another tradition, style, or technique, you'll be able to you'll be informed from your previous experience, versus sometimes when we go into yoga, it's like, I'm going to do a Kundalini class, I'll do an Ashtanga class, I'll take a Bikram class, then I'll go to the Vipassana meditation retreat. And it's like trying to do too much all at once. So some of the advice from a lot of the old school yogis in India is pick one, hang with it for a little while, see if it works for you or not. But always be open. If you try a style of yoga and you don't resonate with it, and you gave it true trial and technique, then be open to trying another method. So I hope, Lady Godiva, that helped answer your question.
I think you hit on something big, Todd. Something big that you have to focus on one thing to get really good at it. Now, I do Ashtanga yoga, or some flavor of it that's highly tuned, and then once a week I do a Yin yoga thing. But the point is if I was to do Power Vinyasa yoga one day, Yin yoga the day after that, Iyengar yoga the day after that, Bikram yoga the day after that, I don't think I have a chance to master any of them.
Yeah, and that pretty much probably holds true in all. Whenever we're learning something, we just really got to give it our full effort, and build the other element. What Ashtanga does do is it has a step by step procedure. So you start at one place and you work in order, and that consistency is really good, because then each day it's like a mirror. It gives you an opportunity to see where you were yesterday and observe how you are today. And because the poses are consistent, because you're moving the body in a specific way, you're like, wow, yesterday my shoulder was really tight, but today all of a sudden I'm doing the same exact thing, and it's a completely different experience. And so it kind of lends in this direction of observation. It's but all yoga does this. So I'm a huge fan of encouraging everybody, no matter what style of yoga they're into. Like, if someone comes up to me and says, well, is your yoga better than this yoga I do over there? If you love the yoga that you do over there, stick with it. Like, that's an amazing thing. If you develop a relationship with your practice and you're benefiting from it, that's an incredible thing. And sometimes it takes a long time to find that. It takes a lot of years of practice and exploring. And when you do find something that really resonates with you, that's an amazing thing. So, yes.
Todd, could you get to the Lady Godiva put up another never mind. You can do Mauricio's first.
All right. Yeah. Mauricio, can we start yoga at any age? Heck yes. Yes, you can. I've seen so many situations with that. Now, in terms of I know usually we think in terms of the elderly, so I'll start on that side. Absolutely, it is never too late to do yoga, and I love working with people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. I haven't yet gotten to work with someone in their hundreds, but it's so incredible. Because what I've seen, there's so many different situations, but the answer is yes. We can start at any age, and it's if someone tells you differently, I'm 100% sure they're wrong. Now, if you can, even if you're in a hospital bed and you are confined to or chair, wheelchair, it's possible to practice yoga, especially when we see yoga as this multidisciplinary approach that involves movement, breath, meditation, concentration, developing focus. Um, so yes, in terms of with children, Mr. Iyengar, Mr. BKS Iyengar, who is a legend in the yoga world, out of India, who he has since passed. He recommended that with, similar to bodybuilding, like usually around about age 14 or 15 is his theory was that young children shouldn't overdevelop the body while they're developing, because you just kind of want to let the natural process happen. We want to be careful. If we, get a 12-year-old in on lifting really heavy weights, it can disrupt the natural pattern of bone and muscle development. Now in yoga, usually children are already pretty limber, and we do work with children, and we just make them more playful. The classes are way more playful. They're more structured toward the attention span of a child. We even had someone who worked with us at our studio that would do mommy and me yoga when the infants were babies, and they just like do little gentle, like pressing the knees into the belly and massage, just to kind of massage the abdomen. So now, when's a great time to start yoga? Today. It doesn't matter what age you are. And quite honestly, and there's so many great stories in India about age. One of the things they say in age in India, or in yoga culture, the years you are old really has nothing to do with your age. There's different like they say, like your ability to forward bend and stretch your spine is the determining factor of your age. You might not want to hear that, because if you can't touch your toes, you might be like, I'm only 20, and are you saying I'm an 80-year-old already? But sorry, Elonzo. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But no, because you were telling me earlier how you're like, oh my gosh, touching my toes. I don't know. But so that's why it's really important to start now or today. Also, I can't verify this or say if this is 100% true or not, but there's this idea that we're born with a certain amount of breaths. So say you've been allotted, I'm going to pick a random number, 2 billion breaths. And if you and breathe them all up, your time goes. So if you can slow your breathing down, I'm going to make my 2 billion breaths. I'm going to stretch them out and try to stretch them out as far as possible. So I love that idea as well, that through the breathing and slowing that down, that there's a chance that it'll enhance life. And also, if we do get the opportunity to live a long life, that it'll improve life in general.
That's a good segue into another question that we got.
Please.
From Lady Godiva again.
Can you talk a bit about breathing techniques in Ashtanga?
Yes, thank you, Lady Godiva. Great questions. And also, she wrote, I noticed that when I'm stressed, I stop breathing, but I try to remember to breathe through things. Good. Okay, so Ashtanga style breathing has a technique that's called Ujjayi. Jai is like victory, hooray. Ujjayi means victorious breathing. What it is we're breathing in and out of the nose. In the back of your throat, you have what's called the epiglottis. And basically, you have the ability to constrict or open your throat. And Ujjayi breathing is breathing in through the nose and squeezing the throat a little bit. And when I'm breathing out of my nose, so it's called breathing with sound. And there's the two main reasons for this. One, most of the time, we don't know that we're breathing. We're unaware of it. It's happening automatically. And when you constrict the throat and you bring your attention to listening to your breath, and just to make it so I can at least teach you the technique a little bit, I'll try to break it down a little bit because I know it's a little tricky at first. If my hand is a mirror and I want to fog the mirror, when I breathe out of my mouth, I would go, I blow air out of my mouth, strong sound. Now I'm going to blow air out of my mouth again, but halfway through the exhale, I'm going to close my mouth. So I'm going to go, that's your epiglottis squeezing. The harder breath to do is the inhale and still squeeze the breath and go. So the technique is to just start with the exhale, learn how to close the mouth and keep the sound going. And then so basically, because now you can hear the breath, it's like, oh yeah, I have breath. And then you're aware of like, oh, I'm real choppy with my breath. Let me try to slow my breathing down. So the other purpose of the breath, and going back to what Chow asked regarding heat, is that just simply breathing can build heat in our body. There's a famous breathing technique called Tumo that is out of Tibet. The Tibetan monks are known for being able to sit in the snow and in a seated meditation posture, and they can just use breath and melt a whole ring of snow around their bodies. They can generate so much heat out of their bodies, which actually makes a lot of sense if you wonder, like, how did the Tibetans live in the mountains like that in those freezing conditions? And they knew how to breathe. They used their breathing to survive that. So, or to live comfortably in that really incredible environment. I'm going to get a little side topic, but there's a really famous breathing teacher named Wim Hof, who you might have already heard of. He's really awesome. He's legendary. Wim Hof, Hoff. He's got a bunch of books out there, and he's called the Iceman. He's known for going under icebergs or sheets of ice underwater and doing these crazy long breath holds and coming up and showing no signs of hypothermia or anything. So he kind of does amazing things with breathing as well. So I guess I wanted to bring up it generates heat, which is really good for our digestive fire as well. And it also is a good way to just like be aware of like the sound of the breathing. So I guess my suggestion then, Lady Godiva, is in that if you forget about, like you're already aware, okay, I want to try to breathe through stress, try giving your breath just a little bit of sound, and that might make it a little easier for you to be able to remember to keep breathing through that stressful moment, because I hear you, it can be so challenging sometimes.
And I want to add one more thing. I'm going to ask Todd to do it.
Please.
With the Ashtanga breathing. So as a rule, when we bend forward, there's a certain type of breath that we do with an exhale. And when we bend back, there's an inhale. Now, I want time to talk about the relaxation benefits of forward bends versus the energizing of back bends a little bit, and how Ashtanga ties the breathing links together. Every move, there's a breath, because I think that'll help some of our students that are trying to fight stress, because it helps me. In fact, I can say right now, I can't even do usually breathing with my throat issues. So I'm doing standard breathing and I don't feel the same.
I hear you. I believe you, Mike. That's a good point, Mike. So now we've spoke about the fact that, say you're sitting at the desk and you can do a simple round flexion of the spine, or you can alternating back and forth from extension and flexion. The next piece of the puzzle, and this is what Vinyasa is to, when you go into the back bend, is to inhale. And when you go into the forward bend, is to exhale. So then you start breathing in and out. And so now you've really upped the ante with utilizing your breath with your movement. You start to coordinate these two together, and it just really amplifies the yoga experience and or practice. In relation to what you asked, Mike, with the energetic elements of the in-breath and the out-breath. So I hope I'm not going too technical, but I find this fascinating. So in yoga, there's what's called prana and apana. And you might have heard of the clothing company called Prana. Prana is basically life force, and apana is rooting force. So it's just looking at nature and noticing that there's this lifting energy, or like a rising energy, or lightness, and then there's gravity, and there's a downward pulling energy happening. And these two forces they're unified, but sometimes it feels like they're working in opposition to each other. The inhale breath is the expression of prana, and that's associated with the back bend. And the exhale breath is the apana. That's the downward rooting energy. That's the forward bend. So what we're doing, the inhale and the back bending is generally very energizing. It's recommended to do back bends, say, in the winter time. I mean, I think do back bends winter, summer, fall, spring. But if you're feeling lethargy, if you're feeling a little depression and or you're feeling down, doing some simple back bending, a really great technique is to take a pillow or a blanket and roll it up, put it so it's long ways on the floor or your yoga mat, and then lay back so it's long ways. So the towel's at your neck and the base of it's down at the base of your spine. You lay back and you let your chest push forward, and you just lay on that. And that puts you into an extension position, which is really good for alleviating depression and or feeling down and low. Now, the apana is, we typically think of like if someone's kind of sad or depressed, that they're hunched forward. And the general postural representation of feeling sad and or depressed is to close in. So opening against that and moving the body is like a way of saying, I know what I want. I want to try to feel a little more free energy and a little less down and out. And that the physical element is correlated with the mental element. So to kind of tie back a little bit into that question regarding mental and emotional health. So to kind of tie up your question, Mike, the inhalation is associated with prana and increase of energy. It's balanced out with this apana, which is the downward. And we want to try to build balance. And that's where if you inhale, when you push your chest forward, and exhale when you round, that you'll have the benefits of the breath movement coordination.
And that's where the prana versus apana dog come from, where Iyengar is different than Ashtanga now.
Yes.
And now I finally get the lineage, Todd.
Yeah, if you guys watch on if you check out my YouTube channel, I just did a video recently that says the downward facing dog video, and I explain the intricacies of all these different expressions. I mean, then you think, God, the down dog, how could there be so many different types of dogs? Well, there are. Even in the
I know I learned one in Iyengar yoga and a different one from you, and I know you can always go back and forth, so I think that's great.
All
Thanks,
right,
Mike.
So I got to do my job now.
Yeah,
We've been going.
Put you to work.
Before you do, can I say it's my recommendation that everybody subscribes to Todd's channel?
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, but I was gonna let me do this. Let me do it. Let Mr. Producer do Mr. Producer. All right. Okay. One last question, and I thought it would be a good one to close on. It's nothing over extensive, but I bet it's a good question that everybody should know the answer to. From Mauricio, how long do you recommend to practice daily at a minimum?
Ooh.
Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it is an uber deep.
No, it's a really good question. I want to make sure I answer this well. Okay, so I'm going to suggest that, well, if you can start with 5 minutes of yoga a day, that is a great beginning, especially if you can start to do that every day. Because if you just get the ball rolling and get a really simple routine going where and start to develop consistency and just make it a very bite-sized amount of time, 5 minutes, but you actually do that 5 to 6 times a week, then we can bring that up to 6 minutes a day, and then we can bring it up to 7. I'd love to practice an hour-long session. I think 60 to 90 minutes is a really wonderful amount of time to devote to yoga practice every day. But I realize that that is a big ask. That's a big chunk of time out of every day. So I say start really small, 5 minutes. And if you can get that going consistently, you're going to start to feel the benefits of it. You're going to start to cultivate a relationship with the practice. And you're going to start to feel like what Mike talked about, where I can't miss my yoga. And because it's in a 5-minute window, I really believe all of us can find 5 minutes. I truly, I mean, and it's just a matter of setting the alarm 5 minutes earlier, or you know, taking a 5-minute longer lunch break. Or if I have a 30-minute lunch break, I'm going to only eat for 25 of those minutes, and 5 are going to be for yoga. So that would be my answer. Start real small and reasonable, and then reach out to me, and I promise you I can make it more challenging and involving. But start off small and simple. Baby steps, baby steps.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Todd.
Thank you guys. That was so fun.
It was
Yeah.
great. I learned a lot.
You guys have great energy too, man. I love all your smiles, and what an amazing team you have. You guys are incredible. So keep doing what you guys are doing. This is amazing.
And I think so highly of Todd. One day, very soon, I'm going to go to Todd's studio and do a live stream with him.
There
Yes,
we go.
Yep,
And
we've
On
already.
his channel.
And
I
could we get
said that on his channel.
I want to make sure that we get a hashtag Native Yoga Center for all the students. So we would love to get that algorithm going for Todd.
Yes, we
Thank you,
would.
Alonzo. Thank you, Alonzo.
You're welcome.
And and make sure I put the link to
Appreciate
his
that.
YouTube channel in there just a few minutes ago. So make
Thank
sure
you, Lady
to
Godiva.
Subscribe to that channel.
Tyrone. Yeah, Tyrone. Mauricio, thanks for all the good questions.
Yeah.
Elonzo, there you are. Thank you, Chow.
Very appreciative.
I appreciate it.
So
You know it.
Mike, I will give you a few more minutes on the stopwatch if you would
Thanks,
like
Colin.
to say any
I
last
just
words.
wanted to thank everybody for being here. You know, my world is getting people hired, but it's not just getting people hired. I want to change everybody's life. I want to make them happy, healthy, financially secure, emotionally good, develop their relationships. And you know what? I always want to bring the best people that I know. I know Todd and his wife now for 17 years. I'm getting a room decorated. Todd's sister's coming over. I wanted to check a sauna. I went to Todd's other sister that has a wellness center. You know, I've practiced with Todd's mother, Todd's father over the years. And Todd's father, who's in his 80s, is still practicing yoga at his studio. He's 80s, right?
Late 70s.
Late 70s. Okay, but he's still there.
Yeah,
And he's got
77.
an incredible yoga
Yeah.
practice. So
Oh my gosh, my dad. Yeah.
I've
My
even
dad
seen
is
his
amazing.
beautiful little daughter practice yoga when she was a kid on a mat that had a bear on it, which I thought was super cool. So thank you all for being here. I strongly recommend learn some yoga. I'm recommending Todd's place. He's got 2 weeks for you to try. I know you guys are having trouble signing up. It's related to this mind-body thing. I'll work with Todd on that. Because
No, it's the security thing. It keeps sending the pictures. It never accepts the right pictures.
Okay.
The prove you're a human thing.
Oh man.
Yeah, the Google owned prove you're a human thing is not working right now. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I know what I'm doing on my Thai massage on Sunday. I'm going to be debugging applications. But it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Thank you all for here. Todd, thank you for sharing your wisdom. I know
Thank
how
you.
long it took you to develop these skills. It wasn't just yesterday. It wasn't like you were born yesterday. I know you for 17 years, but before that, you were running a different yoga studio in California. I know you were practicing yoga all over the world. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise to make our community
Thank
better.
you. Thank you so much, you guys. Appreciate
All right.
everything.
So much, Todd. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone
Mike.
for joining.
Yeah.
Make sure you save your voice, Mike.
Yes. Save,
All
eat, relax.
Yeah.
We'll do that hashtag save your voice, Mike.
All right. And now we're all going to go be like Cindy.
My poor baby girl has not been going out all day. She senses the hurricane or something that's out there. So my cat Cindy's going to have some fresh scallops that I'm going to cook for her right now. Hopefully, and some fresh shrimp my wife got. So she doesn't have it too rough around here.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.